Today is Tuesday, May the 22nd, and it's the 142nd day of 2018, and there are 223 days left in the year, so you have to decide about your Christmas presents. I'm messing with my microphone here. Today's high ocean. The remains of the sub were later found on the ocean floor 400 miles southwest of the Azores. In 1761, the first American life insurance policy was issued in Philadelphia to a Reverend Francis Allison, whose premium was £6 per year. In 1868, a major train robbery took place near Marshfield, Indiana, as members of the Reno gang made off with $96,000 in loot. In 1913, the American Cancer Society was founded in New York under its original name, the American Society for the Control of Cancer. In 1939, the foreign ministers of Germany and Italy, Joachim von Ribbentrop and Galeazzo Ciano, signed a Pact of Steel, committing the two countries to a military alliance. In 1947, the Truman Doctrine was enacted as Congress appropriated military and economic aid for Greece and Turkey. In 1960, an earthquake of magnitude 9.5, the strongest ever measured, struck southern Chile, claiming some 1,655 lives. And in 1969, the lunar module of Apollo 10, with Thomas P. Stafford and Eugene Cernan aboard, flew to within 9 miles of the moon's surface in a dress rehearsal for the first lunar landing. And I just realized I got the cart before the horse. I didn't do the opening, and I didn't let anybody do the weather, so go ahead and do the weather. We're all here, okay, and we'll talk to you in a minute.
Your weather today will be humid with clouds and sun. The high will be 87. Tonight will be mostly cloudy and humid with a low of 69. Tomorrow there will be an afternoon thunderstorm in the area. The high will be 85, the low 68. Thursday there will be clouds and sun, a thunderstorm. It will be humid with a high of 87 and a low of 63. Friday will be low clouds, can possibly break. It will be humid. The high will be 86, the low 67. On Saturday, there will be a thunderstorm in spots in the afternoon. The high will be 87, the low 69. Sunday, there will be variable clouds and possible thunderstorms. The high will be 84, the low 71. And next Monday, there will be variable clouds, possible thunderstorms. The high will be 83 and the low 71. Sunrise today was at 6:07 a.m. Sunset tonight will be at 8 p.m. Moonrise today is at 2:35 p.m. Moonset today will be at 2:50 a.m. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 6:07 a.m.
What about birthdays? We don't have anybody with a birthday again. I don't know what I'm going to do with you folks. There's never any birthdays on a Tuesday. Oh well, we'll read the ones in the paper. Okay, business magnate T. Boone Pickens is 90. Former CNN anchor Bernard Shaw is 78. I think that's pronounced Bernard in America. Actress Barbara Parkins is 76. Retired MLB All-Star pitcher Tommy John is 75. Songwriter Bernie Taupin is 68. Country musician Dana Williams from Diamond Rio is 57. Rhythm and blues singer Johnny Gill from New Edition is 52. Actor Michael Kelly is 49. Model Naomi Campbell is 48. Actress Anna Belknap is 46. And actress
This Men has been rescheduled for Saturday at Campground United Methodist Church on 4625 Campground Road. It will be from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Rain shortened the event last Saturday. For more information, you can call 867-9436. Battle of the Borders Step Show. The Battle of the Borders Step Show is scheduled for June 2nd from 4 to 7:30 p.m. at the Sampson Middle School Gym on 1201 West Elizabeth Street in Clinton. The event will feature elementary, middle school, high school, and community step teams from Clinton, Greenville, Rayford, Fayetteville, Rocky Mount, Raleigh, Virginia, and South Carolina showcasing their steps. Doors open at 3:30 p.m. Admission is $6 in advance, $8 at the door. For more information, call area code 910-337-4512 or area code 919-616-8694. Tutors needed. Fayetteville Urban Ministry needs volunteer tutors for the Adult Literacy Center. Training sessions are once a month. The next training session is June 8th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Pre-registration is required. You can email Carol Ann Murray at cmurray, C-M-U-R-R-A-Y, at FAYURVMIN.org or call Fayetteville Urban Ministry at 483-5944. Shaw University Scholarship Banquet. The 17th Annual Shaw University Scholarship Banquet is June 1st at 6:30 p.m. The banquet for the Fayetteville Cumberland County Chapter will be at the Metropolitan Room, 109 Green Street. The guest speaker is Paulette Dillard, interim president of Shaw University. Tickets are $30 each. For more information, call Wilson Lacey at 988-1707. We want to hear from you. Please submit your events in writing at least 10 days in advance. Email calendar at fayobserver.com or fax complete details to 486-3545. Or for questions, call 486-3500.
Okay, and now we have live wire. The question today: large water mains are usually deep, buried 3 to 4 feet down, well below our frost line. There is always water moving through them. How can they freeze and burst? Why don't frozen mains show up as water outages or poor flows to the customers? Surely there must be early warning of ice-occluded pipes. And that letter was from ML in Fayetteville. And here's the answer. According to Carolyn Justice Hinson, a spokeswoman for Fayetteville PWC, the water in the pipe doesn't freeze. In an email, she said the soil covering the pipe starts freezing from the surface and progresses to greater depths when the air temperature drops below freezing for extended periods of time. Typically, this is over a period of days. As the freezing penetrates deeper to the depth of the water mains, usually 3 to 4 feet deep, it causes the soil to expand, she said. That can cause the pipe to break due to uneven stress between frozen and unfrozen soil. The reverse can happen as air temperature warms up, she said, and the soil starts thawing. And that was written by Michael Fudge. And it says Livewire seeks to answer questions of general interest and consumer topics. Initials are used to identify questioners when names are given. You can contact Livewire at fayobserver.com, or you can phone them at 486-3516.
Public Safety, Cumberland County, arrest Julian Bernard Miller, 51, of the 200 block of Lockock Street in Spring Lake. He charged Monday with 2 counts each of possession of a firearm by a felon, possessing marijuana with intent to sell and deliver, maintaining a drug vehicle, possession of marijuana, misdemeanor possession of drug paraphernalia, and misdemeanor child abuse, and 1 count of possessing with intent to sell and deliver. Bail was set at $7,000. And Jonathan Markel McCrae, 42, of Conister Drive in Parkton, was also arrested.
Okay, here is in brief. The first one's from Clinton. A Louisiana man was shot to death Saturday in Clinton. This according to a Sampson County Sheriff's Office report. The shooting was reported at 10:58 p.m. on the 100 block of Kent Circle, which is off Indiantown Road, about a half mile from Clinton High School, the report said. The victim was identified as Willie Jr. Melvin, 33, of Villa Platte. No other information was available. And Mayor named Linear Park for Harry Shaw. Fayetteville Mayor Mitch Colvin would like the city to name its Cross Creek Linear Park after Harry Faison Shaw, a civic booster, businessman, and philanthropist who championed the park's construction. Shaw died Saturday at age 91. Colvin plans to ask the Fayetteville City Council to take up the idea at its meeting on Thursday evening, he said in emails to the City Council and the Fayetteville Obsever on Monday. "That's a fantastic idea," City Councilwoman Kathy Jensen said. "Great idea," Councilman Larry O'Wright said. Cross Creek Linear Park runs along the length of Cross Creek Festival Park in downtown Fayetteville to the city's Riverside Dog Park on Eastern Boulevard, east of downtown. Shaw, who also was a former member of the City Council, founded a non-profit organization that built the park. It opened in 2015. He also was known for pushing to redevelop downtown Fayetteville after it had fallen into a deep decline, and for the development of Fayetteville Technical Community College.
Crowns caps theater's season. The gospel musical continues at Cape Fear Regional Theater through June 3rd at Roger Mullen, staff writer. While millions poured over the details of the wedding of a certain Meghan and Harry on Saturday, another crowd was wanting royalty of a different sort. The gospel musical Crowns opened at Cape Fear Regional Theater, delivering a rousing and energetic cultural lesson about the significance of hats in the African American church. The play was written by Regina Taylor, who was interviewed on stage before the opening night performance. She adapted it from a book by Michael Cunningham and Craig Marbury. The play was directed for the theater by Donna Bradby. The story centers on a Brooklyn girl named Yolanda, played by Ariel Mima Blake, who was sent to live with her grandmother in Darlington, South Carolina, after the murder of her brother. Down south, Yolanda discovers a world she barely knew existed. She is especially intrigued and puzzled by the custom among women of wearing often elaborate hats to church. Through gospel-tinged songs such as Just a Closer Walk, His Eyes on the Sparrow, and Wade in the Water, the skeptical Yolanda comes to learn and appreciate the historic and cultural significance of the hats her grandmother and the other women in the church wear. And that significance is considerable. "I'd lend my children before I'd lend my hats," one character says in explaining the importance of accessories. "My children know their way home." A relatively small cast brought Crowns to life. Along with Blake, the performers are Cassandra Lowe Williams, LaTanya R. Wiley, Chastity McIntosh, Janita Jackson, Shire Hawkins, and Walter Johnson. Each of the performers other than Hawkins played more than one role. On opening night Saturday, the cast was uniformly excellent, tackling the gospel songs with gusto and bringing the proper mix of humor and gravitas to the loosely constructed story. While it would be difficult to single out any one performance from the ensemble, Williams was excellent as the matriarch of the group. As Yolanda, Blake's job was largely to introduce the play and serve as an observer while the other women in the cast told their stories, and she did so perfectly. Blake stood out in a wrenching segment in which she recounted her brother's murder. Johnson played all of the men in the story, including a pastor, husband, and suitor. He juggled roles well, although having him play a high school student was a bit of a stretch. Crowns, which continues through June 3rd and ends Cape Fear Regional Theater's 2017-18 season on a high note, but what for me at least was the best show of the year. I'd call it a crowning achievement. Before the show, Taylor was interviewed on stage by fellow playwright Mike Wiley, whose works include The Parchment Hour and Downrange. Taylor talked about her Dallas childhood and how her mother and grandmother instilled in her a love of the creative arts. She also discussed her work as an actress, including her Golden Globe-winning role in the TV show I'll Fly Away. "To be able to do what you love is a true blessing," she said. "Look at myself as a creative spirit, and I try to do that in as many ways as possible." Taylor said she was intrigued by the hat-wearing tradition after reading Cunningham and Marbury's book, and that led to the musical Crowns. "I know each and every one of these women," she said. Staff writer Roger Mullen can be reached by emailing rmullen@fayobserver.com or by calling 486-3561.
This is about Hope Mills. Apparently, they're going to censure the Mayor Pro Tem. By a 3-2 vote, the Hope Mills Board of Commissioners voted Monday night to censure Mayor Pro Tem Mike Mitchell. The vote came after Mitchell raised concerns about some members' involvement in a private Facebook group called Hope Mills Chatter. Commissioner Jesse Bellflowers made the motion to censure. Bellflowers, Jerry Legg, and Meg Larson voted for the censure. Mitchell and Commissioner Pat Edwards voted against it. Mitchell had raised concerns about some commissioners' participation in the invitation-only Hope Mills Chatter group, saying he was concerned it could violate open meetings laws. Mitchell said he did an informal poll on his Facebook page about the matter. He also asked Freda Bluestein of the University of North Carolina School of Government about it. In a memo, Bluestein said she didn't think the situation necessarily constituted a conflict as long as no public business was conducted and no public resources were used. Mitchell made a motion that commissioners not participate in group emails or closed online groups, but he withdrew the motion after Dan Hartzog Jr., the town attorney, said he would have to research the issue. My inclination is that would provide First Amendment issues, Hartzog said. Bellflowers then introduced his motion to censure Mitchell. Bellflowers said he thought Mitchell should have brought his concerns to the board first. He also questioned why Mitchell pursued the matter, since Bluestein gave her opinion in February. I feel like my integrity has been challenged, Bellflower said. I feel like my First Amendment rights have been challenged. Mitchell said he was proud of his stance. If you want to move on with this censure, that's okay, Mitchell said. In other action, the board meeting as the Board of Adjustment approved a billboard at 2702 Hope Mills Road. Larson and Legg voted no. The board also held a closed session to discuss a personnel matter.
Yar. Diverse group vying for open District 2 seat by Myron D. Pitts. 10 people want to be the next Fayetteville City Council member representing District 2. The council is scheduled to make its decision June 11th, according to Mayor Mitch Colvin. And the people of the district, which includes the city's most ambitious economic development and some of its poorest neighborhoods, are watching and listening. More than 100 people showed up to a community meeting last week at Second Missionary Baptist Church on Old Wilmington Road to talk about district concerns. Among them were political leaders, community activists, church folk, neighbors, and others. These people have no current representative on council after Tyrone Williams, elected only in November, resigned earlier this month. He had been caught on tape trying to get money from a developer on a project connected to the new baseball stadium located downtown in District 2. James Pete Eachern sounded a theme at the meeting that was repeated by other residents, that the district feels left behind when it comes to city resources. We're not getting what we deserve, says Eachern, who has been active for years in improving the Old Wilmington Road area. The neighbors are not the only ones who recognize the importance of the seat. In attendance last Tuesday were State Representative Elmer Floyd and State Senator Wesley Meredith, and Meredith's opponent in the November primary, Kurt Deviere, a former District 2 councilman. Judges in attendance included Terry Seiler and Tal Backett. Clerk of Court Lisa Scales was there, as was Mabel Smith, former District 2 councilwoman. McEachern and others said a major athletics field complex, funded by a voter-approved parks bond, should be built on city-owned land on Fields Road in their District 2. The city will have to purchase land for the other site in contention off Santa Fe Drive. At a recent work session, council members leaned heavily toward the Santa Fe location. The mayor told people at the meeting that council has not made an official decision yet. Colvin led last week's meeting along with Cumberland County Commissioner Charles Evans, the former District 2 councilman who organized the event. The mayor also addressed residents who had raised concerns about the council getting to choose the district representative when an election had already been held. Colvin said state law put the decision in the council's hands. His was an important point. In an ideal world, a new election would be held, but that is not practical for economic and logistical reasons. The notion of picking who finished second makes sense on one level, but in point of fact, that person, Dan Colleton, did not win the seat. There is no way to know that if Williams had not run, they would have picked Colleton or someone else. Colleton, a chiropractor, is taking another shot at it. So is retired businessman Len Brown, who was eliminated in the October primary, was among 9 candidates who ran last year. The rest of those who submitted applications by Friday's deadline were Patricia Bradley, an Army veteran and lawyer employed by Fayetteville State University, who formerly worked as an assistant city attorney. Vernell Cruz, a community volunteer who works with seniors and the homeless. Mary Smith Bunny English, a retired broadcaster who served on the advisory committee for the transit system. Retired Brigadier General William Gothard, who manages programs for the Science and Technology Division for the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, and who has served on the city's Historic Resources Commission and Zoning Commission. Philip McCorkadell, who was Vice President of Operations for Phillips Towing Service and a former chairman of the Cumberland County Local Emergency Planning Committee. George Mitchell, an Army veteran who is licensed in real estate and insurance. Sharon Moyer, Community Engagement Manager for the Partnership for Children, who formerly worked with the Fayetteville Obsever and was Executive Director of the Fayetteville Dogwood Festival. And George Turner, a real estate broker who has worked on various city and county boards and was chairman of the Cumberland County Civic Center Commission. This is a diverse group of people with lots of experience, and the council should be able to pick a good public servant from among them. The district deserves no less. Columnist Myron B. Pitts can be reached by emailing mpitts, M-P-I-T-T-S, at FAYobserver.com, or by calling area code 910-486-3559.
Okay, this is about the health board. Cumberland County Commissioners decided on Monday not to take over the duties of the Board of Health. Commissioners voted 5-2 to leave the governance structures for the Health and Social Services Department in place. They were considering merging the two or assume the duties of one or both the Health and Social Services Boards. Much of the attention focused on the Health Department, which has been under scrutiny for more than a year. The jail health program, which was being operated by the Health Department, lost its accreditation in 2016. Last year, commissioners learned that some women who had abnormal cervical cancer exams from 2011 to 2015 had not been told about the results. The motion to leave the Health and Social Service Boards in place included a directive that the department directors and the county manager look at ways to collaborate. Commissioners Michael Booz and Jimmy Keefe opposed. Booz said he had hoped the commissioners would take action to deal with the issues at the health department. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, he said. Keefe said the issues at the health department resulted from a leadership problem. Ultimately, the buck stops here, he said. Keefe said problems with health in the county have been going on for decades. If you're content with the way the health department is going, no need to change. I think we can do better. Commissioner Marshall Fairclough said he didn't think the commissioners should assume the duties of the health board. I think we could be effective for a while, he said, but not the long term. Fairclough said that if the effort to encourage collaboration isn't effective, commissioners could reconsider taking control of the health board. Commissioner Jeanette Council, who made the motion to keep the current boards in place, said some of the ideas about collaboration need to be put into writing. Commissioner Glenn Adams said he supports stronger collaboration. Commissioner Charles Evans said commissioners need to do a better job selecting members of the Health and Social Service Boards. Dr. Conette McMahon, chairwoman of the Board of Health, spoke during the public comment portion of the meeting before commissioners discussed the issue. McMahon said the board wants to continue to oversee the health department. I admit that there is work that we as a board need to do, she said. We have to begin the process. Kathleen Holden Baker, who has previously criticized the health board for closing adult health and dental clinics, asked commissioners to assume oversight of the health department. When we have concerns, we feel we can go directly to you, Baker said. In other action, commissioners met in closed session to discuss economic development and legal issues. They also heard a presentation on the Pathways for Prosperity Comprehensive Action Plan and decided 8 rezoning cases.
Division run a massive display of American power by Drew Brooks, military editor. The 82nd Airborne Division ran en masse down Fort Bragg's Longstreet Road early Monday as they opened a salvo in the division's annual All-American Week. Most of the division's 18,000-plus paratroopers participated in the 4-mile run. Veterans, soldiers, and family members lined parts of the road to cheer them on. It's a massive display of American power represented by American sons and daughters and the premier airborne division in the world, said Command Sergeant Major Michael Ferrucci, the senior enlisted leader of the 82nd Airborne Division. This year, the bulk of the division's soldiers are home at Fort Bragg, a rare break from near constant deployments in support of the nation's wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Last year, approximately 2,000 soldiers were deployed during All-American Week. This year, the number of deployed troops is about 135, officials said. Colonel Patrick Work, the commander of the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, was leading soldiers in Iraq last year. This year, he said the brigade is focused on its future, willing to take a break to honor its past. Today, the BCT is getting ready for our next fight, he said. We're ready to go tonight. If we're not in the fight, we're preparing for the fight, Work added. The division run traditionally opens All-American Week. For the next 2 days, paratroopers will compete in athletic and skills competitions. On Wednesday, the 82nd Airborne Division will host its inaugural Hall of Fame induction ceremony, followed by a memorial ceremony honoring 4 paratroopers killed in action in the past year. The week will culminate Thursday in the Airborne Review, a public capabilities display that will include an airborne operations and follow-on demonstrations at Sicily Drop Zone. Work said All-American Week was a rare opportunity to bring in alumni and families while keeping an eye to the future. He said he cherished the week after missing it last year because of the deployment. Ferrucci, meanwhile, is taking part in his first All-American Week. It's a celebration of the organization, he said. It's a celebration of their service as paratroopers. It's 101 years of history. The Command Sergeant Major and Major General Eric Correa, the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne Division, led the formation of paratroopers from Rock Field to Hedrick Stadium and back. At Hedrick Stadium, the soldiers circled more than 7,200 boots on display, each representing a service member who had died since 2001. Ferrucci said the week is already living up to high expectations. If it doesn't motivate you and make you proud, nothing will, he said. Military editor Drew Brooks can be reached by emailing dbrooks@fayobserver.com or calling 486-3567.
Okay. Well, let's do station identification here since I missed the opening. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our P.O. Box number is 35029, and that's Fayetteville 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. And your radio hosts are
Robert Bean
and Tina Beatty, and we are proud to serve you today. What we got here? Oh, that's interesting. Something on the other side. Okay. Oh, wow. The title of this piece is Pastor Said Mental Illness Drove Man to Ram Car into His Family. Oh my goodness. And there's a picture here. Roger Self stands in the courtroom during his first appearance hearing at the Gaston County Courthouse in Gastonia on Monday, and there's sheriffs, or one of the sheriff's deputies standing next to him and one behind him. This is from Bessemer City, which makes me think of Pennsylvania or somewhere. Anyway, a man suffering from severe mental illness left a meal with his family and then drove his sport utility vehicle at high speed into the restaurant, killing his daughter and daughter-in-law and critically injuring other relatives, his pastor said Monday. Roger Self had been treated for depression and anxiety that seemed to become more intense in the 2.5 months preceding Sunday's deadly crash, said the Reverend Austin Rammel of Venture Church in Dallas, North Carolina. The pastor, who is a close family friend, said Self opened up about his problems about 10 weeks ago when he asked his son to take his guns away from him. His family and close friends have intensely labored to try and get Roger help. We all feel a level of guilt, the pastor said at a news conference. The pastor said Self's judgment had become impaired, but he didn't imagine he would hurt his family. He said his friend may have hoped to die in the crash, and that it's very possible that Roger imagined in his mind that the best thing for his family is that they all just go together. The crash sent stunned patrons scrambling at the Surf and Turf Lodge about 30 miles west of Charlotte. Self was immediately arrested. Shackled and wearing an orange jumpsuit at a hearing on Monday, he showed little emotion as he asked for a court-appointed attorney and was ordered jailed without bond on 2 charges of first-degree murder. I'm hanging up my sweater. Don't mind me. Oh well. The Selfs are a family of first responders. His daughter Caitlin Self was a deputy with the Gaston County Sheriff's Office. She and his daughter-in-law Amanda Self, an emergency room nurse, were killed as the car rammed through the outside wall. Amanda Self was married to Roger's son Josh Self, a Gaston County police officer. Josh Self and Roger Self's wife Diane were in critical but stable condition on Monday, said Rammel, who has been in close contact with the family. A 13-year-old granddaughter of Self's was treated and released from the hospital, police said. At a news conference Monday, officials with the Bessemer Police Department declined to elaborate on Self's mental health, but police spokesman Rob Tufano said evidence gathered so far shows the crash was intentional. It is abundantly clear that this was not an accident, that this was something Mr. Self had intentionally done, Tufano said. Caitlin Self had arranged Sunday's after-church lunch, inviting her fiancé and his parents as well, because she was hoping that her father would feel better if he was surrounded by family. Rammel said they had drinks and appetizers and were talking and laughing after being seated at a table near the window. The pastor said the family wasn't initially concerned when he got up, figuring he may have been suffering from anxiety. They began noticing his car out in the parking lot had circled, and the next thing you know, he came through the window, Rammel said. The pastor said Self had seen a psychiatrist and family doctor, but hadn't been hospitalized. Rammel said Self told him He was taking medicine for depression and anxiety, but he was becoming particularly unstable over the weekend. It was a roller coaster, and in the last few days it went from bad to really bad, he said. Caitlin Self, 26, was a 4-year veteran of the Gaston County Sheriff's Office, the sheriff said in a news release. She had worked as a corporal in the jail and was off duty when she was fatally injured. Authorities said the family was requesting privacy and referring any questions to Rammel. Roger Self himself, a former law enforcement officer, ran a private investigations business called Southeastern Loss Management, mostly working for companies to investigate employees' wrongdoing. Rammel said the business had been going through an unspecified transition that required the help of some friends, but he didn't elaborate. Rammel, whose church is listed in a directory of the Southern Baptist Convention, said Self had been active for decades in a Baptist congregation that grew into Venture Church. He said Self had served as a volunteer youth minister to hundreds and hundreds. The mission of this church has always been to help others, but Rammel said he needs to learn more about mental illness and the challenges people can face in finding treatment. This has been a huge lesson for me, he said, later adding, I think we as a nation are very ignorant about it, and we need to get non-ignorant about it.
Autopsies describe Fayetteville, North Carolina prison attack by Emery P. DeLisio, the Associated Press, Raleigh. Inmates used hammers to crush skulls and scissors to spear flesh when they killed 4 employees last fall in the bloodiest prison escape attempt in North Carolina history, medical examiners determined. Their newly released autopsy and other reports offer details prison officials have been unwilling to share. Prison officials were unable to say Monday when they will release results of an internal investigation into last October's failed uprising at Pasquotank Correctional Institution. Department of Public Safety Secretary Eric Hooks has said he expects to withhold details about how the attacks unfolded and why. 4 inmates now charged with first-degree murder used weapons including a claw hammer, a ball-peen hammer, and half a pair of scissors, medical examiners said. The lone officer guarding the sewing plant near where the violence started was stabbed 67 times. The prison was so understaffed that 1 in 4 positions was vacant, forcing workers to cut corners in ways that created opportunities for mayhem, according to a report by National Institute of Corrections evaluators. That federal report, released in January, said inmates handed out scissors with 6-inch blades, hammers, and other tools to fellow prisoners working at the plant that made safety vests. Inmates, who federal evaluators said had been allowed to roam unobserved near the prison industry's sewing plant, also set a fire to create a diversion masking their breakout attempt. Correctional Officer Justin Smith, 35, was the only guard overseeing 30 prisoners when inmates attacked, according to the Institute, an arm of the U.S. Justice Department. His body was found near the sewing plant's door to a hallway, medical examiners said. Sewing plant manager Veronica Darden, 50, was killed in the hallway to a freight elevator, medical examiners said. Correctional Officer Wendy Shannon, 49, was killed in a loading dock by inmates tugging carts of tools for their escape attempt. Another guard with her survived that attack, according to a prison infraction report first acquired by Charlotte TV station WBTV in November. Prison officials have declined to release the report. Maintenance worker Jeffrey Howe, 31, died 3 weeks after suffering extensive brain and skull injuries, medical examiners said. State Bureau of Investigation agents observed all of the autopsies, the report said. Prosecutors have announced that they will seek the death penalty against inmates Waziza Buckman, Kel Brady, Seth Frazier, and Jonathan Monk. State prison guards continue to face daily violence. And last week alone, at least 7 correctional officers at 3 prisons were struck by aggressive inmates, officials said. One guard at Alexander Correctional Institution needed medical treatment after being punched. 2 months ago, an officer at Foothills Correctional Institution in Morganton was hospitalized after being stabbed or slashed several times by an inmate armed with a handmade blade.
Okay. Excuse me, here's state in briefs. From Raleigh, the legislature watchdog agency says more alcoholic beverage control stores have become profitable and efficient since the General Assembly approved reforms 8 years ago. The Program Evaluation Division released its report Monday, looking at results from a 2010 law giving the state ABC board the ability to force local boards to meet performance standards or face the closure of their poorly run liquor stores. The authors say local board profit margins have increased on average and more local boards meet expense standards. But the study finds a law raising the population threshold for a town to vote for an ABC store hasn't eliminated inefficiencies because those new stores take away sales from nearby stores. Local boards run over 400 stores that help distribute $400 million worth of liquor to governments, that helped distribute $400 million to governments last year. And from Mount Airy, the former mayor of a North Carolina town says she's running for the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor in 2020. Deborah Cochran is a Winston-Salem high school teacher who was mayor of Mount Airy for more than 5 years until 2015. Cochran told the Mount Airy News that co-workers encouraged her to run. She says economic development, job creation, and mental health and substance abuse prevention would be on her agenda if elected. Cochran also was a Mount Airy radio personality for 35 years and aerobics instructor at the region's community college. The state constitution prevents current second-term GOP Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest from running again. Forrest is expected to run for governor. And from Charlotte, North Tryon Street was closed at the 900 block early Monday after police found a woman shot in the area. She died later at Carolina's Medical Center. The victim was identified as Shalimar Venable, age 39. Investigators say they were called at 3:59 a.m. to the intersection of North Tryon Street and 11th Street, where they found the victim with gunshot wounds. That's just north of the East Brookshire Freeway.
13 protesters arrested at North Carolina Legislative Building by Gary P. Robertson, the Associated Press, Raleigh. More than a dozen people were arrested Monday inside North Carolina's Legislative Building while demonstrating against Republican policies in the state and the nation, supporting a long list of liberal-leaning demands. Authorities led away 7 protesters in front of Senate Leader Phil Berger's office door Monday afternoon and 6 at House Speaker Tim Moore's door. General Assembly Police Chief Martin Brock said the arrest occurred during the second of 6 weeks of nonviolent actions at state capitals and in Washington, D.C. by the National Poor People's Campaign. Nearly 50 protesters were cited by Raleigh police last Monday for blocking traffic in front of the building following a rally that attracted more than 200 people. This Monday, more than 100 people entered the building at a rally focused on immigration and racism. They congregated around the second-floor corner offices of the chamber's top GOP leaders, to whom their chanting and singing were directed. Participants also laid out demands for initiatives such as living wage laws, universal health care, free college tuition, and the repeal of the 2017 federal tax overhaul. Police had told the groups about noise complaints, Brock said. The 13 protesters led away by police with plastic handcuffs were being charged with second-degree trespassing because they had refused to leave after those complaints, he said. The civil disobedience was reminiscent of nonviolent protests that began in 2013 at the Legislative Building and ultimately led to more than 1,000 arrests. Those moral movement events were led by the Reverend William Barber, who is now a co-chair of the National Poor People's Campaign. Anna Haraza Blackburn, one of 3 co-chairs of the Poor People's Campaign movement in North Carolina, said there is no reason why the campaign demands can't be met. Instead, she said federal politicians passed a federal tax law that benefits the rich and the expense of the poor. America has an abundance of resources, Haraza Blackburn told reporters. That's all about prioritizing.
Berger was in the building Monday during the protest. Moore was in Washington at a White House meeting of state House speakers. Most legislators hadn't yet arrived for the legislative week. The demonstrators referenced the fall elections before leaving the building before 5 p.m., chanting, "Vote them out, and I believe that we will win." All 170 state legislative seats and congressional seats are on the ballot in November. Can the deal-maker president deliver? Trump's diplomacy looks shaky as China trade war falters. North Korea summit looms, by Catherine Lucci and Zeke Miller, The Associated Press, Washington. Weeks before his planned North Korea summit, President Donald Trump is staring down a deal-maker's worst nightmare, over-promising and under-delivering. As the Singapore meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un draws near, the president and his allies are growing increasingly anxious about how he can score a win on the world stage. While Trump has not suggested he wants to back out, he has struggled to define his objectives for the historic sit-down, and last week he drew fresh criticism from his foreign foil. I think that Trump imagined he would go into this meeting and be able to have a historic breakthrough with a deal, but it's clear he's starting to realize it won't be as easy as he imagined, said Jean Lee, director of the North Korea program, the Woodrow Wilson Center, and a former Associated Press bureau chief in Pyongyang. Trump, who has pitched himself as the ultimate negotiator, is focused on ambitious deals as president, but has struggled with the fine print. He just hit the pause button on his threatened trade war with China, announcing an agreement to reduce America's trade deficit with China, but few details. He recently withdrew the U.S. from the international Iran nuclear deal without outlining a path forward with his allies. And his Middle East peace plan, which he deputized his son-in-law to lead, is months overdue and facing a more skeptical audience than ever. Supporters stress that sometimes Trump's ambitious efforts do pay off, as with the massive tax cut bill he signed into law late last year. Going into the North Korea meeting, senior administration officials say the president has been almost singularly focused on the pageantry at the summit, including the suspenseful rollout of details. He has not been deeply engaged in briefing materials on North Korea's nuclear program, said three people with knowledge of the White House efforts. They were not authorized to speak publicly. Scott Snyder, director of the program on U.S.-Korea policy at the Council of Foreign Relations, said there's a risk that the ceremony and the historic nature of the meeting be allowed to overshadow the deliverables. Driven by gut instinct, Trump rarely dives deep as he prepares to meet with foreign counterparts. For the North Korea meeting, insiders say, he is motivated by the idea of scoring a historic deal and is tickled by suggestions he could win a Nobel Peace Prize, especially since Barack Obama won the honor early in his presidency. Trump has maintained publicly that his goal is to see the Korean Peninsula denuclearized, and the North has agreed to put its nuclear program on the negotiating table as a condition for the talks. But the two sides are still miles apart on defining what might be mutually acceptable. Trump will huddle Tuesday at the White House with South Korean President Moon Jae-in to prepare for the June 12th summit. It was Moon's government that delivered the initial invitation from Kim for a meeting, and South Korea has been pushing the U.S. toward a peaceful resolution to the nuclear crisis. North Korea threw a wrench in the plans last week, threatening to counsel over concerns about the U.S. push to see the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Administration officials viewed the warning as bluster, akin to Trump's own promise to walk away if Kim isn't serious about denuclearization. Both sides, they said, have a vested interest in a successful meeting. Trump attempted to assuage Kim's concerns last week, promising protections should he abandon his nuclear weapons. But Trump also suggested Kim risk being overthrown and possibly death if the arsenal remains. Two former Trump administration officials said the high degree of uncertainty surrounding the talks benefits Kim, who stands to gain the most in the form of international legitimacy from a sit-down with Trump. Concrete gains for Trump would be slower to emerge. Denuclearization programs are measured in months, not days, and for North Korea, which has already demonstrated thermonuclear capability, will likely take years to dismantle and verify that it had abandoned its atomic efforts should it agree to do so. One official said the priority of the talks in Singapore would be to reach a top-line understanding with Kim, with details to be fleshed out later.
I wanted to ask you what happened to the editorials and the letters to the editor and all that stuff. And they're not in there. I've been through everything. Most of it's world news.
I cut him. I know I cut him.
And there's the obituaries.
Turn that over, that obituary. Maybe that's, nope,
That's okay. She brought me
I
some.
brought you some minutes.
So that's okay. We haven't got that much time anyway. Okay. Okay, I don't have to read. Well, here, I have something from Hope Mills. Let me read that. There's some kind of stuff if you want to read any of that. This is from Hope Mills. A Fayetteville man sought for the robbery of a bank in Hope Mills last week was arrested Monday morning in New York State. This according to police. Warrants for robbery with a dangerous weapon and kidnapping have been issued for Timothy Carl Givens Jr., 26, of the 900 block of Dominion Drive, said Deputy Chief David Serby of the Hope Mills Police Department. Givens is accused of robbing the Crestcom Bank, 3103 North Main Street in Hope Mills, at gunpoint on May the 14th, a police news release said. The next day, police received an anonymous tip that Givens had committed the robbery. On May 16th, Hope Mills Police, with help from the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, executed a search warrant at Givens' home in an effort to locate him and find any evidence linking him to the robbery. Givens was not home, but investigators received another anonymous tip that Givens had left the area and was possibly headed to New York. Givens was arrested Monday in Greenburgh, New York, located along the Hudson River, north of Yonkers and west of Great Neck. Givens is expected to be extradited at a later date when he will be served with the warrants, Serby said.
North Korea acting up. It's cornered by Mark A. Thiessen. North Korea's recent temper tantrum over U.S. South Korean military exercises and its threat to pull out of its upcoming summit with President Trump signs that Trump's North Korea strategy is working. For the past several months, Trump has boxed in Kim Jong-un. First, he ramped up economic pressure on Pyongyang while making clear that, unlike his predecessors, he was willing to take military action. Yet when Kim offered to meet face-to-face, Trump shocked everyone, probably including Kim, by reportedly accepting on the spot. Instead of rejecting the offer, using it as a bargaining chip to elicit concessions, Trump said yes and put the two nations on a faster track to nuclear negotiations than anyone had anticipated. Then, the president began shaping the parameters of an agreement, starting with making clear what kind of deal he would not cut. The North Koreans want a nuclear deal like the one President Barack Obama gave to Iran. Sanctions, relief up front, billions of dollars in cash, a weak inspection regime, and sunset clauses on the back end. By withdrawing from the Iran deal last week, Trump sent Pyongyang a crystal clear message: don't cut deals like that. He then used his senior officials to lay out the parameters of the kind of accord he would cut. Kim wants to get paid for the promise of denuclearization. Appearing on Face the Nation, National Security Advisor John Bolton played the bad cop and explained that that is not happening. Trump will only pay for actual denuclearization. The president, Bolton said, is looking for a manifestation of the strategic decision to give up nuclear weapons. It doesn't have to be the same as Libya, but it's got to be something concrete and tangible. It may be that Kim Jong-un has some ideas and we should hear him out. While Bolton set expectations for denuclearization, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo played the good cop and held out the twin carrots of security and prosperity if Kim agrees. If North Korea takes bold action to quickly denuclearize, Pompeo said, the United States is prepared to work with North Korea to achieve prosperity on par with our South Korean friends. That stunning offer is deeply destabilizing for Kim. If he goes to a summit with Trump and refuses to accept a deal that provides his country with prosperity on par with South Korea, then he can no longer blame the West for the misery of the North Korean people. In other words, Trump and his national security team have put Kim in a corner, offering him peace, security, and prosperity, but only if he first denuclearizes completely, verifiably, and irreversibly. It's a wonder that North Korea is lashing out. Kim might be looking for a pretext to get out of his meeting with Trump, and the military exercises provide a perfect excuse. He may also be testing Trump to see how badly he wants the summit, or maybe trying to drive a wedge between the United States and South Korea in advance of the talks. He knows South Korean President Moon Jae-in is deeply invested in his sunshine policy with Pyongyang. If the North threatens a little rain, perhaps the South, which desperately wants the summit, will pressure Trump to cancel the military exercises or be more flexible at the bargaining table. Trump needs to show Kim that he won't respond to threats by refusing to call off the exercises. Through back channels, he needs to reaffirm his willingness to provide North Korea with security and prosperity in exchange for immediate denuclearization, and also make clear that if North Korea refuses, the alternative is not the status quo. Sanctions will be wrapped up. Military action is possible. Above all, Trump should take North Korea's recent outbursts as a signal that Pyongyang is feeling the heat. A cornered animal roars precisely because it is cornered. Stand firm, Mr. President, and don't let up the pressure. The Washington Post columnist Mark A. Thiessen at washpost.com.
That's time to do letter to the editor, and there's just one today. May is Existing Industry Month in Cumberland County. This annual event provides an opportunity to acknowledge our private sector that provides jobs, invests in our tax base, and is the backbone of our economy. FCEDC will highlight some of our existing industries and their impact. With Fort Bragg celebrating its 100th anniversary, it's fitting to feature businesses that support, equip, and help train our troops. The North Carolina Military Business Center says over 850 firms were contacted by the Department of Defense last year in Cumberland County. Wow. This resulted, are you ready for this? $958,327,623 in revenue, a third of defense spending in North Carolina. That is really good, isn't it? My goodness. Nearly all U.S. top 10 military contractors have operations in our area, including Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics. Local companies like Spring Lake-based RLM Communications provide technology that protects classified information. The Advanced Computer Learning Company, ACLC, develops virtual reality simulations at its headquarters in downtown Fayetteville. Others that provide civilian products also support our military, like clothing giant MJ Sophie. Many businesses benefit by hiring veterans whose prior training and security clearances equip them for these industries. Over 6,500 soldiers transition into the workforce each year, finding careers that leverage their active duty experience. FCEDC is proud to recognize Cumberland County's defense companies. They have defined our region as an innovation corridor and constantly develop solutions and technology for the military's ever-evolving operations. In addition, their investment and large veteran employee base have made them a critical component of our local economy for the past 100 years. And that letter was from Kathy Johnson, Director of Economic Development, Fayetteville, Cumberland County Economic Development Corporation. So that was good. Who knew that much money was generated? Shall we do this? This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC in Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our P.O. Box number is 35029, and that's Fayetteville 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or toll free 1-844-709-5656. And your radio hosts are
Robert Bean
and Tina Beatty, and we are proud to serve you today. Robert's got obits.
Death notices. The following deaths have been reported. Upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Obsever will contain complete obituary information. In Cumberland County, Marshall Edward Elliott Jr., 72, of Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. Leon Jordan Jr., 59, of Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. Carol Black, 86, of Fayetteville, Rogers and Breese Funeral Home. In the Cape Fear region, Ronnie Lee Ring, 61, of Vass, Cox Memorial Funeral Home and Crematory in Vass. Gene Stevens, 78, of Linden, Butler & Son Funeral Home of Roseboro. Lois M. Branch, 83, of Lumberton, Floyd Mortuary and Crematory in Lumberton. Ernestine Coleman, 88, of Lumberton, Floyd Mortuary and Crematory in Lumberton. Mary Wade of Fairmont, Hills Funeral Home. Laura Jane Adams, 77, of Forsyth, Wiseman Mortuary. In Cumberland County, Nancy Jo Schermerhorn Brady, 64, of Fayetteville, died on Friday, May 18, 2018, in her home surrounded by family and friends. The family will receive friends between the hours of 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. Wednesday, May 23, 2018, at Highland Baptist Church on 4456 Legion Road, Hope Mills, North Carolina, 28348. Celebration of Life service will begin at 6:30 p.m. with Pastor Zach Kennedy officiating. Burial will follow at a later date. In lieu of flowers, consider a donation to the Highland Baptist Church Children Program Fund. Arrangements for the family are entrusted to Lafayette Funeral Home, 6651 Rayford Road, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28304. Online condolences may be made at www.lafayettefh.com. Darlene Alice Leading, 70, of Hope Mills, died Monday, April 30th, 2018. The memorial will be held this Saturday at noon at St. John's Lutheran Church, May 26, 2018. The visitation will be at St. James Lutheran Church on May 26, 2018, this Saturday from 11 a.m. to noon. Service is entrusted to Greaves Funeral Home at Hope Mills. Region and elsewhere, Louis Edward Epps, 68, of Maxton, died Sunday, May 20th, 2018. Funeral will be held Thursday at 3 p.m. at Union Light Baptist Church. The visitation will be at Union Light Baptist Church Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The burial will be at Epps Family Cemetery. Services entrusted to Richard Boyle's funeral service. John B. McCrae of Rayford died Friday, May 18, 2018. Reverend John B. McCrae, 88, of Rayford. Public viewing will be held from 3 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 23rd in the Purcell Funeral Home Chapel of Southern Pines. Funeral service will be held at 1 p.m. on Thursday, May 24th at St. Mary's CPH Church in Red Springs. Burial will follow in Serenity Memorial Park of Rayford. Shelba Gray Jackson, 79, of Bladenboro, died Sunday, May 20th, 2018. The funeral will be held Wednesday at 1 p.m. at Peace Baptist Church. The visitation will be at Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and the burial will be at Memory Lane Cemetery in Bladenboro. Charlie Bowden, 59, of Bladenboro, died Monday, May 21st, 2018. The funeral will be held Wednesday at 5 p.m. at Zion Hill Baptist Church in Bladenboro. Visitation will be after the funeral service. The burial will be at Hickory Grove Baptist Church Cemetery. Service is entrusted to Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home. And Richard Gibbs, 50, of Roseboro, died Thursday, May 17, 2018. Funeral will be Wednesday at 2 p.m. at Somerville Boykin Mortuary Chapel in Garland. The viewing will be at Somerville Boykin Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. and the burial will be at Garland Community Cemetery. That concludes today's obituaries.
Okay, now it's time for Billy Graham. Here is that these things are all taken from the writings of Billy Graham, because you know we lost Reverend Graham. Here is the question. I know the Bible says we shouldn't get angry, but how can we avoid it? When people upset you, you can't just pretend you're getting angry or act like it doesn't exist. and it's signed FJ. And here's the answer. You're partly right. Unfortunately, we often do put a lid on our anger or make ourselves think we really aren't angry, at least for a time. But hidden anger can eat away at us like a deadly cancer, hurting us both emotionally and spiritually, and sometimes exploding into uncontrollable rage. On the other hand, great harm also comes when we give vent to our anger, destroying both of us and those around us. As you read through this newspaper today, I'm sure you found many illustrations of this tragic truth. Murder, domestic violence, child abuse, terrorism, and even full-scale war often have their roots in uncontrolled anger. The Bible rightly says, an angry person stirs up conflict, and a hot-tempered person commits many sins, and that's from Proverbs 29, verse 22. But the Bible points us to another way, the way of Christ. When we submit our lives to Christ and seek to do His will, we won't let circumstances upset or overwhelm us. Instead, we'll turn them over to God and seek His peace and patience. Things that used to make us angry will no longer do so, because we'll begin seeing them from God's point of view. I often think of Jesus in this regard. He was falsely accused and unjustly condemned to death, and yet He never got angry or lashed out at His accusers. As the Bible says, He was oppressed and afflicted, yet He did not open His mouth, and that's from Isaiah 53, verse 7. Commit your life, including your emotions, to Jesus Christ. Then ask Him to help you face life's situations the way He did, with love for others and complete trust in God.
Dear Abby, with Gene Phillips, man devoted to wife suffering Parkinson's fulfills his vows. Dear Abby, I'm writing in response to Requires Companionship, February 7th, whose husband has atypical Parkinson's and she's considering dating. My wife was diagnosed 9 years ago and she too has reached a point where she can no longer walk, write, or speak. We have, however, found ways to communicate and spend quality time together. I tried to care for her at home, but over the last year and a half it became too difficult. With the help of our daughters, we found a wonderful senior living place where she is happy. I go to the gym every morning and visit with her and have lunch. I bring her clothes home to wash and take care of anything she may need or want. We spend the holidays together with the family at her place to make things special. We are both 81, married 57 years. I, too, am lonely and sad at times, but I love her more than the world and want to make sure she is well taken care of and content. As for companionship, I've met some wonderful people at the senior living place as well as at the gym and in restaurants I frequent, which helps with the loneliness. If the shoe were on the other foot, I know she'd do the same for me. After all, that is what our marriage is all about, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Jim in Nevada. Dear Jim, your letter is inspirational, and your P.S. you asked me to print it to help others. Your letter and others I'm including here may help to put this sensitive subject into perspective. Dear Abby, I'm a young 57-year-old woman. My husband has Parkinson's and brain tumors. We have a son with autism, so I have been a caregiver for more than 30 years of marriage. To requires, I say, take time for yourself, but do not tell your husband. Enjoy what years you have left and grab some of the happiness you deserve. Don't let anyone tell you that you are cheating on your husband. The life you had with him was over emotionally and physically long ago. You've given up enough of your life. Your husband is having all his needs met, and now it's your turn. Yes, I believe in marriage, but who is going to worry about you? People judge you, don't understand, and won't understand. Joining a support group may help, but don't put yourself on the back burner. You count too. Good luck and God bless. Sandra in New Jersey. Dear Abby, I'm a 64-year-old woman who was in the same boat for 15 years. My husband was angry, passive-aggressive, and reclusive. Leaving him to die on his own of cancer was unthinkable, so was actually dating. What saved my life and sanity was Meetup. With my husband's blessing, I joined and participated in 5 social groups with different interests. Lunch with the ladies, dinners and hikes, craft clubs, etc. I was out with communicative people at least twice a week and came home happier, usually with restaurant treats and stories to share. RC's life does not need to feel like it's over. It's possible to plant new seedlings for the future while not causing any problems now. Wishing her well in California. Dear Abby, said Audrey, someone with Parkinson's, I know what it's like not to be able to talk with a loved one. My mom communicates by writing and using a voice assistance computer. RC's husband didn't ask for this disease. He is feeling lonely too, but he is not dead. She should work on developing a different approach to communicating with him. These patients may lose the ability to speak, but not the ability to think clearly and see what is going on around them. Been there in Pennsylvania. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabby.com or P.O. Box 69440, Los Angeles, California 90069. Universal Youth Radio.
Okay, here's horoscope. Born today, and we don't have anybody with a birthday today, so hope we haven't missed you. You are never one to turn a blind eye to a warning sign of any kind. That kind of caution is sure to give you advantages in both your personal life and your professional affairs. And for the rest of us Geminis, you've been receiving hints, but you still can't figure out a certain problem that has been weighing on you for quite some time. Cancer, not all news is bad news. Today, you're likely to get a piece of information that changes everything for the better, in little time, too. Leo, delays are inevitable, but it's how you use them that makes the difference, and using them well depends on your ability to think outside the box. Virgo, you may have too many cooks helping you with a project that could have been completed some time ago. Today is the day to get it done for good. Libra, changes do indeed need to be made, but you're not ready to make them just yet. A friend or loved one is willing to give you a few more days. Scorpio, what you don't know may indeed hurt you today. You must get all the information you can about a situation that is impossible to avoid. Sagittarius, your emotions are near the surface today, and you may not be able to control yourself if something happens to make you angry. Use care. Capricorn, you will want to steer clear of any situation that you suspect has been promoted by someone who is not in your inner circle. Dangers abound. Aquarius, you've concocted quite a plan, and not everyone is willing to back it wholeheartedly. You may have some persuading to do. And Pisces, what works for you won't work for everyone. But is that a key issue? The fact is that you can do much today entirely yourself. Aries, you can enjoy the same kinds of successes as your rivals today, but you'll still be doing things in your inimitable fashion. And finally, Taurus, you will need more information before you're able to set off into new territory. Past experience is only so valuable today.
Support groups for Tuesday. Adult children of alcoholics and codependency, 1 to 2 p.m. Friends in Recovery Group meets at Snyder Memorial Baptist Church, room 1035. The church is located on 701 Westmont Drive. For more information, you can call 988-6858. Al-Anon Serenity Seekers Group meets at noon at 109 Bradford Avenue, 6:30 p.m. on 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton, and 7 p.m. at P Street United Methodist Church on 320 Hay Street. For more information, you can call 850-1444. Takeoff Pound Sensibly meets at 5:30 p.m. at West End Baptist Church Fellowship Hall on 805 West Drive in Lumberton at 5:30 p.m. At Coach United Methodist Church on 288 East South Street at 6 p.m. At Raleigh Road Presbyterian Church on 208 South Raleigh Road at 6 p.m. At College Lakes Recreation Center on 4945 Rose Hill Road at 6:30 p.m. Dominion Church on 1874 Cedar Creek Road. For more information, you can call 1-800-932-8677 go to the website tops.org. That's TOPS.org. Alcoholics Anonymous has a number of meetings today. There are 7 a.m., noon, 5:30, and 8 p.m. meetings at 626 Sandalwood Drive. There are noon, 5:30, and 7 p.m. meetings at 604 German Street. There's a noon meeting at Holy Trinity Church on 1601 Rayford Road. There are noon, 6:30 p.m. meetings at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton. There's an 8 p.m. meeting at Trinity United Methodist Church on 6974 Rayford Road. Manna Church on 5117 Cliffdale Road has an 8 p.m. meeting. First Baptist Church on 416 South Main Street in Fairmont has an 8 p.m. meeting. There's an 8 p.m. meeting across from Falcon Home in Red Springs. There's an 8 p.m. meeting at 40 Marion Road in Lumberton. And the Alcoholics Anonymous hotlines are 678-8733 or 678-8002. Al-Anon meets at 6:30 p.m. at 401 East 1st Street in Lumberton, 7 p.m. on 320 Hay Street. For more information, call 678-8002. Narcotics Anonymous. To find weekly meeting times and locations, call 866-418-9500 or visit the website crna.org. Diabetes Management Clinic meets from 8 a.m. to noon at Better Health of Cumberland County on 1422 Bragg Boulevard. For more information, call 483-7534. And Taking Charge of Your Care meets from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Health Pavilion North Cancer Center. This is for cancer patients and their families or caregivers. For more information, call 615-3849.
Okay. Do you know where the TV schedule is? Here is a column by Troy Williams. Troy Williams is a local man. He's a legal analyst and criminal defense investigator. He is a WIDU radio co-host on Thursdays from 11 to noon, and he can be reached at talk2, that's numerical 2, troywilliams@yahoo.com. Anyway, here is his op-ed piece. Mabel Smith, this is called A Bumpy Road to Choosing a New Council Member. Mabel Smith had some sage advice for the Fayetteville City Council regarding a replacement for former District 2 Representative Tyrone Williams. Smith, an African American who also represented District 2 on the City Council, said, and I quote, "The race of the person who lands the position was unimportant. The city should consider the individual who will do the best job," end quote. Of course, Smith is right, but some of her fellow citizens want what is called descriptive representation. That is, individuals who share the experiences and signs of belonging to the group. In other words, blacks should represent blacks, women should represent women, and if the first two are correct, then one could argue whites ought to represent whites too. Some believe descriptive representation is a function of democracy. I'm not sold on this concept. If the so-called descriptive values are only visible characteristics, such as skin color or gender. The United States Constitution even requires that a president is born in the United States. Being a native of this country, or one of us, is assumed to promote loyalty to our interests. But researchers have proven that racial and gender identity says very little about what the representative does. The primary function of representative democracy is to represent constituents' interests through deliberation and aggregation. District 2's most recent representative, Kirk DeVere, who happens to be white, is a shining example of a city legislator who got some things done for a majority African American segment of the community in spite of his racial difference. It wasn't about skin color. He was successful because he was skilled, talented, and dedicated to the public good. Some political operatives are declaring that Williams' replacement must not only be black but be a Democrat as well. Fayetteville elections are non-partisan, and they're probably going to remain that way for good reasons. Perhaps the "they must be black and a Democrat" narrative is a scheme to narrow the field for specific candidates. Earlier this week, and by the way, I should point out that Troy Williams is also a black man that's writing this article. Earlier this week, 5 candidates introduced themselves to residents at a meeting at Second Missionary Baptist Church on Old Wilmington Road, where the discussion includes William Goddard and Bunny English also have made applications for the job, but were reportedly not present. For some, Dan Cullerton would be a no-brainer to fill the seat, since he was the runner-up candidate who received 1,141 votes. But apparently Cullerton's skin color, he is white, bothers some black members of council, although it didn't bother 43% of the voters of District 2. I don't know Cullerton, but disqualifying him just because he is white seems harsh and unfair. Credible sources say Patricia Bradley, an African-American Army veteran who used to work for the city of Fayetteville and now works for Fayetteville State University, is being heavily lobbied as Williams' replacement among some of the black council members. I first met Bradley, an attorney, in 2010 when she was the Fayetteville Police Department's legal advisor. During that time, our community was embroiled in a contentious struggle with the city's police department over accusations of racial profiling of black motorists, which eventually led to former police chief Tom Bergamein's retirement and former city manager Dale Iman's resignation. Bradley was a major strategist and communicator for the city with the U.S. Department of Justice, which was involved in helping bring the matter to an amicable closure. Through a public records request, I obtained Bradley's email communications with USDO. Lawyers and I were appalled with her responses to questions the DOJ. Wait a minute, let me read that again. I obtained Bradley's email communications with the U.S. Department of Justice lawyers, and I was appalled with her responses to questions the DOJ lawyer had concerning what was happening in our community. For the record, I still have those emails and other documents that support my position that Bradley needs to be asked some hard questions about her role in contributing to the systemic police profiling of black drivers before she is selected as a member of this city council. It's comical how some of our local politicians act as if Fayetteville has a strong mayor form of government. We have a council-manager form of government. Our system of government elects a council with a ceremonial mayor. The city manager, who is appointed by the council, runs the city. Fayetteville Mayor Mitch Colvin essentially has no more power than veteran Councilman Bill Crisp or the newcomer Councilwoman Tish Waddell. Thursday, during my radio show on WIDU 1600 AM, a caller declared that the candidate chosen to replace Tyrone Williams needs to be a person who will support the mayor and what he wants to do. Well, it doesn't work like that in Fayetteville. It's not about the mayor. If you live in some big city, yes. But in Fayetteville, the mayor only has one vote, and a council, not a single individual, decides public policy for our community. The candidate chosen to fill the vacancy for District 2 should only serve the interests of the citizens. Mabel Smith said it best. You have to know, you have to work for the people. Good peace.
Syrian government declares capital fully under its control by Zina Karam, the Associated Press, Beirut. Syria's military on Monday captured an enclave in southern Damascus from Islamic State militants following a ruinous month-long battle, bringing the entire capital and its far-flung suburbs under full government control for the first time since the civil war began in 2011. The gains freed President Bashar Assad's forces to move with allied militiamen on remaining rebel-held territory in the south near the border with Israel, as Syria's chief ally Iran comes under growing pressure from the Trump administration to withdraw its troops from the country. Iranian-backed militias, including the Lebanese group Hezbollah, have been instrumental in helping Assad's overstretched forces recapture huge areas around Damascus and in the country's center and north, building a military presence that has alarmed Israel and its U.S. ally, which is now looking to constrain Iran's activities. Iranian officials have vowed to stay on in Syria for as long as needed, setting the stage for a potential confrontation as Washington seeks to tighten the screws on Tehran following the U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal brokered with Iran under President Barack Obama and world powers. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo threatened Iran with the strongest sanctions in history if Iran doesn't change course. In his first major foreign policy speech since taking the post as the top U.S. diplomat, he issued a list of demands that he said should be included in any new nuclear treaty with Iran, including that it withdraw all forces from Syria, halt support for Hezbollah, and stop threatening Israel. Iran and Russia have joined forces in Syria, providing crucial military support to Assad's forces, giving them the upper hand in the civil war. Russian President Vladimir Putin told Assad at a meeting last week that a political settlement in Syria should encourage foreign countries to withdraw their troops from Syria. Putin's envoy to Syria, Alexander Lavrentiev, said Putin was referring to Iranian forces, among others. Iran says it is in Syria at the behest of the Assad government and says it is fighting terrorism in the form of Islamic extremists, including the Islamic State group and Al-Qaeda. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Bahram Ghassemi told reporters that no one can force Tehran to do anything it doesn't want to do. Our presence in Syria has been based on a request by the Syrian government, and Iran will continue its support as long as the Syrian government wants, he said, speaking shortly before Pompeo made his remarks. The recapture of Islamic State-held pockets in the Palestinian refugee camp of Yarmouk and the nearby Hajar al-Aswad district in southern Damascus came after a massive bombing campaign that has all but decimated what was left of the residential area on the edge of the capital, once home to about 200,000 Palestinian refugees. The camp has been deserted by most of its inhabitants following years of siege, and a few remaining residents fled to nearby areas in the last days of the bombardment. The last push on the Yarmouk camp came after a group of civilians was evacuated overnight. State TV showed images of troops moving in, waving the Syrian flag and flashing victory signs atop wrecked buildings in the destroyed neighborhood. Some fired in the air in celebration. The move boosts morale and security in Assad's seat of power, putting it out of range of insurgents' mortar fire and shells for the first time in nearly 7 years. With Iran's help, Assad's forces have been making steady gains since 2015, and Russia launched an air campaign on behalf of his forces. In December 2016, government forces captured rebel-held eastern neighborhoods of the northern city of Aleppo, and Assad's biggest victory since the conflict began. But a mix of military pressure and surrender deals brokered by Russia, thousands of opposition fighters capitulated and were evacuated in March and April from Damascus suburbs known as Eastern Ghouta after a crushing government offensive. Syrian troops and their allies are expected to turn their attention to opposition-held parts of southern Syria, including Deria province, in a push that could bring allied Iranian forces even closer to the increasingly tense frontier with Israel. Idlib in the north remains a major rebel bastion, but government forces are expected to leave that confrontation to a later stage. Israel has warned Iran and its proxies to stay away from the border and has carried out a series of airstrikes on Syrian air bases where it believes Iranian troops maintain a presence. Earlier this month, it launched a blistering bombardment of Iranian positions in Syria after an alleged Iranian rocket barrage towards its positions on the annexed Golan Heights.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I'll let you do this one, then I'll do the closing today.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. The nonprofit agency will rely on public donations. Request your support to continue our services. In making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our address is P.O. Box 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at area code 910-672-1600 or toll free at 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts are
Tina Beatty.
and Robert Bean, and we are proud to serve you today.
Okay, here's something about the volcano. Pretty amazing. Unbelievable pictures on television. This is from Pahoa, Hawaii. White fumes of acid and extremely fine shards of glass billowed into the sky over Hawaii as molten rock from Kilauea volcano poured into the ocean, creating yet another hazard from an eruption that began more than 2 weeks ago, a toxic steam cloud. Authorities on Sunday warned the public to stay away, that the cloud had formed by a chemical reaction when lava touched seawater. Further upslope, lava continued gushing out of large cracks in the ground in residential neighborhoods in a rural part of the Big Island. The molten rock made rivers that bisected forests and farms as it meandered toward the coast. The rate of sulfur dioxide gas shooting from the ground fissures tripled, leading Hawaii County to repeat warnings about air quality. At the volcano's summit, 2 explosive eruptions unleashed clouds of ash. Winds carried much of it toward the southwest. Joseph Kakady, an orchid grower who lives and works about 3 miles, that's 5 kilometers, from where lava dropped into the sea, said the flow luckily did not head toward him. At one point, it was about a mile upslope from his property in the coastal community of Kapoho. Residents can only stay informed and be ready to get out of the way, he said. Here's nature reminding us again who's boss, Kakady said. Scientists said the steam clouds at the spots where lava entered the ocean were laced with hydrochloric acid and fine glass particles that can irritate skin and eyes and cause breathing problems. The lava haze called laze, that's L-A-Z-E, from the plume spread as far as 15 miles west of where the lava met the ocean on the Big Island's southern coast. It was just offshore and running parallel to the coast, said the U.S. Geological Survey scientist Wendy Stovall. Scientists said the acid in the plume was about as corrosive as diluted battery acid. The glass was in the form of fine glass shards. Getting hit by it might feel like being sprinkled with glitter. If you're feeling stinging on your skin, go inside, Stovall said. Authorities warned that the plume could shift direction if the winds changed. The Coast Guard said it was enforcing a safety zone extending 984 feet around the ocean entry point. Coast Guard Lieutenant Commander John Bannon said in a statement Sunday that getting too close to the lava can result in serious injury or death. Governor David Ige told reporters in Hilo that the state was monitoring the volcano and keeping people safe. Like typical eruptions and lava flows, it's really allowing Madame Pele to run its course, he said, referring to the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes and fire. Nothing they can do, is there? I mean, it's going to run and keep erupting and... oh well.
Divided Supreme Court sides with businesses over workers by Mark Sherman, The Associated Press, Washington. Divided Supreme Court ruled Monday that businesses can prohibit their workers from banding together in disputes over pay and conditions in the workplace, a decision that affects an estimated 25 million non-unionized employees. With the court's 5 conservative members in the majority, The justices held that individual employees can be forced to use arbitration, not the courts, to air complaints about wages and overtime. For dissenting liberal justices, that decision will hit low-wage, vulnerable workers especially hard. While the complaints in Monday's decision involved pay issues, the outcome also might extend to workplace discrimination and other disputes if employees' contracts specify that they must be dealt with in one-on-one arbitration. Workers who want to take action against sexual harassment, pay discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, and racial discrimination may now be forced behind closed doors into an individual, costly, and often secret arbitration process, said Fatima Goss-Graves, President and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. Lawyers representing management said the decision protects businesses from endless, costly litigation. The outcome does not affect people represented by labor unions, but an estimated 25 million employees work under contracts that prohibit collective action by employees who want to raise claims about some aspect of their employment. The ruling reflected a years-long pattern of the Supreme Court of limiting class actions and favoring employer-favored arbitration over lawsuits into courts, generally preferred by workers. The Trump administration backed the businesses, reversing the position the Obama administration took in favor of employees. The court's task was to reconcile federal laws that seemed to point in different directions. On the one hand, New Deal labor laws explicitly gave workers the right to band together. On the other, the older Federal Arbitration Act encourages the use of arbitration instead of the courts. Justice Neil Gorsuch, writing for the majority, said the contracts are valid under the arbitration law. As a matter of policy, these questions are surely debatable, but as a matter of law, the answer is clear, Gorsuch wrote. Monday's ruling is in line with earlier decisions, he said. In many cases over many years, this court has heard and rejected efforts to conjure conflicts between the Arbitration Act and other federal statutes. In fact, this court has rejected every such effort to date, save one temporary exception, since overruled, Gorsuch wrote. In dissent for the court's liberals, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg called the decision egregiously wrong and likely to lead to huge under-enforcement of federal and state statutes designed to advance the well-being of vulnerable workers. Ginsburg said that the individual complaints can be very small in dollar terms, scarcely of a size warranting the expense of seeking redress alone. Ginsburg, who read a summary of her dissent aloud to distress her disagreement, said employees do not really have a choice about whether to sign such agreements, labeling these arm-twisted take-it-or-leave-it contracts. She said congressional action is urgently in order, echoing her call in 2007 for Congress to address pay discrimination following a high court ruling from which she dissented. Kristen Clark, president of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, said she fears the decision will have far-reaching effects. Today's decision will make it easier for employers to escape liability for widespread discrimination and harassment. No American should be forced to sign away their right to invoke the meaningful protections afforded by our nation's critical civil rights laws, Clark said. The National Labor Relations Board, breaking with the administration, argued that contracts requiring employees to waive their right to collective action violate the labor laws. Business interests were united in favor of the contracts. Gregory Jacob, a former high-ranking Labor Department official in the Bush administration, said the court got it right Monday. This decision thus will not see a huge increase in the use of such provisions, but it does protect employers' settled expectations and avoids placing our nation's job providers under the threat of additional burdensome litigation drain, Jacob said. Lower courts had split over the issue. The High Court considered 3 cases, 2 in which appeals courts ruled that such agreements can't be enforced, and a 3rd in which an appeals court said they are valid.
Okay, here is an opinion piece. This is merits and demerits. Merit. For this year's Field of Honor at the Airborne and Special Operations Museum downtown, the display of more than 800 American flags dedicated to local troops and veterans will remain on display on the museum's parade field through July the 4th. The field's opening ceremony will be held at 10 a.m. today. Oh, that was Saturday's. This is Saturday's column. Each flag honors a specific soldier or veteran, and a tag identifies the flag's sponsor and honoree. The field is part of a national tradition that began after the attacks of September the 11th. The first healing field was established on the first anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on a lawn near the Sandy, Utah City Hall. Since then, more than 300 such displays have become annual events across the country. If you haven't seen the majesty of all those flags waving in the breeze and stood to marvel at the strength of the American spirit, you owe yourself a trip down to the museum this month or next. It's an amazing sight. This is a demerit. For the lack of security at the Gallberry Farm Elementary School in Hope Mills, that made it easy for a man to walk in off the street and start rifling through a filing cabinet in the front office. A custodian said Pierre Kevon Miller, 33, was acting strangely as he was walking in the cafeteria area Tuesday morning. Asked why he was there, Miller said he was looking for his child. Administrators who didn't know Miller put the school on lockdown and called 911. A school resource officer from nearby Grays Creek Middle School and a K-9 officer responded and found Miller in the school office. The deputy needed to use a taser to subdue him. Miller wasn't armed. The incident happened just a few days before yet another school shooting, this time in a Houston suburb that took 10 lives, most of them students. The shooter was a 17-year-old, armed with a shotgun and a revolver. The police said the suspect also brought explosive devices into the school, but they weren't detonated. No one was harmed in the Gallberry Farm incident, but viewed through the lens of the Texas shooting, or the dozens before it, it is chilling nonetheless. It is too easy for outsiders to enter our schools and move through them, and it's clear that we need more on-site deputies to keep the schools more secure. Make our schools less accessible to strangers who have no business in them. We hope to see quick action from the school board to make this happen. And here's another demerit, there are just a lot of them today. For the rise of hate groups across the country, some of which are right here in and around Cumberland County. Leisha Brooks, Outreach Director of the Southern Poverty Law Center, spoke in Fayetteville Tuesday at a meeting of the Community Conversations Coalition. The Law Center has long-tracked hate groups and their crimes throughout the country. The groups she was talking about include white nationalists and supremacists, black nationalists, anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim groups, and others. There are 32 such groups in North Carolina, and the center's website displays a map that shows an anti-immigrant group in Wade, 2 anti-Muslim groups in Fayetteville, and a Ku Klux Klan group in Red Springs. My goodness. The groups have risen, Brooks said, along with the increasing diversity of the American population. The country is rapidly reaching the point where one racial or ethnic group will no longer constitute the majority, and no amount of hatred can stop it. Our efforts will be far better spent learning to understand the rich diversity of people and cultures around us. And yet that's not what we see happening. Too many public officials, and sadly that has sometimes included our president, have no qualms about bad-mouthing minority groups and even encouraging white nationalist groups and their hateful behavior. The only good answer is for the public to rise up and declare that such behavior is unacceptable. And the last demerit, for the State Department of Public Safety, which has misplaced, or more likely had stolen, more than 1,900 computers. The computers, desktop and laptops, were purchased in 2014 and 2015. State Auditor Beth Wood says it's unclear where the computers are. She said her auditors were able to track down most of the 8,600 computers bought in those years, but nearly 2,000 of them have vanished. Wonder where they vanished to. According to the audit, the department distributed the computers to users but didn't track or otherwise account for them. Auditors said the department hasn't done an inventory of computer equipment for more than 5 years. I'd like to interject a comment here, because when I worked for the Army and Air Force Exchange Service, every piece of equipment that belonged to the company had a tag on it with a number. And once a year, you had to go around and inventory this property that belonged to AFIS. So, I mean, it isn't that hard to do something like that. Just put a number on it when you buy it. DPS Secretary Eric Hooks said his agency would follow the auditor's recommendations for preventing loss or theft, but that doesn't do much to instill confidence in the taxpayers that our funding is being used wisely or carefully by state employees. Those 1,900 missing computers make quite a strong statement, don't they, though?
Jupiter's backward-flying asteroid from another system.
Ooh.
Marcia Dunn, The Associated Press, Cape Canaveral, Florida. Just months after the discovery of our first known interstellar visitor, turns out there's another asteroid from yet another star system residing in our cosmic club in plain view. Scientists reported Monday that this interstellar resident is an asteroid sharing Jupiter's orbit but circling in the opposite direction. The asteroid, known as 2015 BZ509, has been in this peculiar backward orbit around the Sun ever since getting sucked into our solar system, the researchers said. About 2 miles across, it joined our neighborhood in the first moments after our solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. The French and Brazilian researchers based their finding on extensive computer simulations showing BZ always has orbited around the Sun in reverse, and thus harkens back to the beginning of our solar system. The results, published in the journal Royal Astronomical Society, come several months after discovery of our first known interstellar visitor, a smaller cigar-shaped asteroid that zoomed by last fall. That passerby rock was named Oumuamua, Hawaiian for messenger from afar, arriving first, or scout. Oumuamua is one of interstellar origin, but it is also only a tourist passing by our solar system, said lead author Athi Namouni of the University of Côte d'Azur in Nice, France. BZ is not. It is a bona fide immigrant, and the notion of immigration is a hot topic nowadays all over the world. Namouni said stars were closer back when our solar system was forming, and asteroids were zipping around between star systems. It's extremely unlikely, practically zero, that BZ came from the same star system as Oumuamua, he noted in an email. He expects lots more interstellar immigrants in our backyard. There's no reason why there shouldn't be more masquerading as solar system asteroids like BZ did so far. And Namouni wrote, he said the area just beyond Neptune, the farthest planet in our solar system, might be teeming with extrasolar asteroids or exoasteroids like BZ. It's extremely unlikely, practically zero, that BZ came from the same star system as Oumuamua, according to Namouni. Co-author Helena Reis of Sao Paulo State University in Brazil said she was surprised by the finding, but noted that's part of the fun of science. We may have asteroids that pass by, and we should also expect asteroids that come to stay, she wrote in an email.
Well, here we have a very long article about Washington. Well, it's from Washington, and it's about Iran. So, do you have anything else over there? Well, an article about Mama Dip. Yeah, let's read that. I know everybody's heard of her. She's in Chapel Hill, and she was a famous restaurateur. Chapel Hill, a North Carolina restaurant owner known as much for generosity as her fried chicken, has died at the age of 89, her family said Monday. Mildred Council, nicknamed Mama Dip by baseball greats Michael Jordan and James Worthy, died Sunday at UNC hospitals in Chapel Hill, two of her daughters said. Council hadn't worked at the restaurant Mama Dip's Kitchen for several years because of health problems, they said. Still, her death was a surprise. She's been in good spirits, daughter Annette Council said. in an interview at the restaurant. All day yesterday, she was just great, and all of a sudden it just happened. We were all shocked. Council, the granddaughter of a slave, opened the restaurant in Chapel Hill in 1976 with $40 to purchase food and $24 for change. That's how much her change fund was. She moved to a larger space across the street in 1999. My mom started a business just to make a living for her family, Annette Council said. We had no idea, any of us, that it would turn out to be all this. My mom always taught us that if you love what you do, everything else will follow, including money. So we always worked hard just because we love this place. We love the customers. We love what we do. So it was never about the money. It was about making people happy. Originally, the restaurant didn't include Mama in its name, said another daughter, Spring Council. It did include Dip, a childhood nickname that the 6'2", 188 centimeter, they must be gradually changing us to the metric system, because they keep putting things like this in the paper. Dip, a childhood nickname that the 6'2" Mildred Council got when she was young because her arms were long enough to dip water from barrels. Gosh, she was tall. One day, Jordan and Worthy, then college basketball players, were in the restaurant and heard the family in the kitchen calling her Mama, so they took to calling her Mama Dip, a name that stuck, Spring Council said. Mildred Council had 8 children and raised another relative who is considered her child, Spring Council said. She said her mother had more than a dozen grandchildren, more than 20 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-grandchild. 4 of her children now manage the restaurant, and some grandchildren work there, the daughters said. The restaurant was open Monday and likely will only close for the day before and the day of her funeral, Spring Council said. Closing the restaurant only briefly is part of their legacy to their mother, they said. We do have staff and they have to take care of their bills, she said. That's what she'd want us to do. Knox Funeral Home in Chapel Hill is handling the arrangements. In lieu of flowers, the family requests that donations go to the Mama Dip Share the Love Fund of Triangle Community Foundation. That was a very nice article.
Opposition scrambles to regroup after the Bureau win by Joshua Goodwin and Scott Smith. The Associated Press, raucous Venezuela. Venezuela's fractured opposition emerged even more powerless Monday, day after an election it boycotted propelled socialist President Nicolas Maduro to an easy victory amid a crushing economic crisis. The coalition's strategy is to sit out the vote succeeded at exposing declining support for the government. Yet it also leaves Maduro's opponents even more dependent on international pressure seeking to force change in the South American oil-exporting nation, where people struggle to find food and are migrating en masse. Even before the government-controlled National Election Council declared Maduro the overwhelming winner, nations around the world had accused him of taking Venezuela down the path toward dictatorship. The election registered lowest turnout in decades, around 46%, as many voters stayed home while the opposition warned the election was rigged. It's an outcome likely to further weaken Maduro's legitimacy in the eyes of many, but not necessarily his grip on power. There has been no sign of wavering support from the leadership of Venezuela's military, which long was the arbiter of Venezuela's political disputes. And Venezuelans, busy trying to survive amid widespread food shortages and hyperinflation, seem too demoralized to engage in protests like the ones that last year resulted in more than 140 deaths. Opponents of the socialist revolution, installed by the late President Hugo Chavez, have few options, said Jennifer McCoy, a Georgia State University political scientist who led 5 electoral missions to Venezuela on behalf of the Carter Center until 2013. The opposition for some time has been waiting for something to save them, she said. In one minor protest Monday, 30 opposition activists marched onto a major highway that a year ago was filled with tens of thousands of anti-government protesters. They unfurled a giant Venezuelan flag, shouting, "This was a farce, not an election." Then they rolled up the flag and dispersed. It lasted 10 minutes.
so hard to mobilize people who are desperately trying to survive or figure out how to leave the country, McCoy said. She thinks it's unlikely the U.S. will act on threats to slap an embargo on Venezuela's oil exports, its main source of cash. Resistance to the idea runs high among international oil companies, as well as refineries built in U.S. Gulf states to process Venezuela's heavy crude, she noted. An embargo would also give Maduro a convenient excuse to blame his mounting problems on what he likes to call the imperialist U.S.
Do you have a TV schedule?
Couldn't find it.
Oh, she said she gave it to you. I went and asked her where it was. Well, we don't have it, so she must not have. That's that big article. That's fine, I'll read this. And we will punt. What's on TV on Tuesday nights? NCIS. Okay, World in Brief from Moscow. I know you pronounce it Moscow, but it's Moscow. Believe me. A Ukrainian court has convicted a Frenchman on charges of preparing a terror attack during the 2016 European Championship and buying illegal weapons. Gregoire Moutot was also sentenced Monday to 6 years in prison at the Lyubommel District Court in the Northwest Volhynian region, according to Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office spokesman Andriy Lysenko. Boy, they're testing me today. Monteau was arrested in May 2016 as he tried to leave Ukraine with an arsenal of weapons weeks before the start of the tournament hosted by France. Ukrainian security services had followed the man and allowed him to buy weapons and explosives in a sting operation. And from London, Meghan Markle's nephew was given a warning by police after trying to take a knife into a London nightclub hours after the royal wedding, the Sun newspaper reported Monday. The tabloid said 25-year-old Tyler Dooley, nephew of the now Duchess of Sussex, admitted having the knife at the Bacchus nightclub in the London suburb of Kingston early Sunday. The Sun reported, citing an anonymous source, that Dooley told club staff he bought the knife from the US because President Donald Trump had warned London wasn't safe. God, is this guy all right? Trump said this month that rising knife crime had left some London hospitals like a war zone. Okay, Donald. What else is he going to say? Well, we really don't have anything else much except the closing, but it's been very nice to be here again with all of you. We missed you last week, and we hope that you've all had a good week. And we hope you all have a good holiday. What's coming up next Monday, isn't it? Yes, it's Labor Day. No, it's Memorial Day. I've been in America since 1960, and I have to stop and think every time which one is Labor Day and which one is Memorial Day. Isn't that pitiful? I know when the 4th of July is, though. Okay, this concludes our reading of the Fayetteville Observer. Your radio hosts have been
Robert Bean
and Tina Beatty. Please tune in at 1 p.m. when you can hear an hour of the Paraglide. At 2 p.m. for a tape broadcast of the Southern Pines pilot. At 4 p.m. you can hear Off the Bookshelf. Additionally, you will hear a rebroadcast of today's Fayetteville Observer tonight at 9 o'clock. We will now join the Raleigh Network for additional news of interest. We thank you for tuning us in. We've enjoyed being with you this morning, and we hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week on the radio, God willing. Bye-bye.